Good evening, everybody, and welcome to tonight's City of Sioux Falls City Council meeting. Today is Monday, February 6th, and we're very pleased to have everybody here. We'll start tonight's meeting with a roll call of our City Council.
Council members Entman, Erpenbach.
Here.
Jameson.
Here.
Karski.
Here.
Rolfing.
Here.
Aguilar.
Here.
Anderson.
Here.
Brown.
Here.
Thank you very much. We are so pleased to have Reverend Ryan Otto of First Congregational United Church of Christ here in Sioux Falls to give our invocation. Welcome, Reverend. It's good to have you here. We'll ask everybody to stand, please. And then after Reverend Otto is completed with the invocation, we'll go right into our Pledge of Allegiance. Reverend Otto.
Thank you for joining me in this invocation. Whose spirit do we invoke in this place? Do we invoke the spirit of Adonai, whose Hebrew prophets called for justice, equity, and right relationships? Do we invoke the spirit of Jesus of Nazareth, who proclaimed a similar message of radical love and justice for the poor? Do we invoke the spirit of Allah, whose prophet Muhammad called humanity to love kinsmen, orphans, and the needy? Do we invoke the spirit of Buddha, who called humans to actively strive for compassion and to alleviate suffering in the world? Do we invoke the spirit of our Lakota brother, Black Elk, who called us to oneness with the entire universe? Whose spirit do we call into this place? Do we invoke the spirit of the people you represent? Is it the business owners, the laborers, the night shift workers, the stay-at-home mothers, the renter, the homeowner, the returning war veteran? Is it the thousands of refugees seeking home, well-being, and safety in our city? Is it the homeless, the drug-addicted, the mentally ill? Then may their spirit be welcome here. Whatever spirit you call to mind in this moment before the work is done, may it be a spirit of unity, unity which is not forced by superficial agreement, but is nurtured by meaningful dialogue about the real issues. May it be a spirit of justice which recalls compassion and listens intently to the voices of the poorest and most vulnerable in our community. May it be a spirit of awareness of those present in the room and those who are not. May the spirit we invoke this evening promote human dignity for all who share life with us in this community. And may it be so.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, good evening, everybody, and thank you so much for being here. I love the shirts. Thank you. It's great to have you here. We do have two proclamations. I want to start with Rare Disease Day proclamation, and please come forward. And would you mind just introducing yourself to the people of Sioux Falls, please?
Thank you, Mayor Huther. My name is Liz Donahue, and I work at Sanford Research. I manage a national patient registry for people who are diagnosed with a rare disease. And Lauren, I'll let you introduce yourself.
I am Lauren Beaumont, and I am the Research Associate for Sanford Cords.
Liz and Lauren, thanks for being here. Whereas in South Dakota, patients, families, medical professionals, researchers, educators, social workers, and others will join in the observance of Rare Disease Day. Whereas, as defined by the Rare Disease Act of 2002, a rare disease is a disease affecting less than 200,000 people in the United States, with approximately 7,000 diagnosed rare diseases. It is not that uncommon to have a rare disease. Whereas, many rare diseases are serious and even life-threatening, and most rare diseases have no treatment. Whereas, about half of the people affected by rare diseases in the United States are children. Since these are genetic disorders, they will remain with these individuals for their entire life, and siblings may be born with the same condition. Whereas people with rare diseases face many challenges: lack of information, difficulty obtaining timely, accurate diagnosis, limited options for treatment, difficulty in finding physicians and treatment centers, expensive treatments, reimbursement issues with private insurance, Medicare and Medicaid, and a sense of isolation and hopelessness. Whereas rare disorders affect the entire family of a patient. Caregivers endure ongoing stress and isolation while managing the medical and financial issues that arise. Whereas millions of people around the world will observe Rare Disease Day on February 29th, 2012, to raise awareness of these diseases and the special challenges encountered by those affected. Now, therefore, I, Mike Huther, Mayor of the City of Sioux Falls, do hereby proclaim February 29th, 2012 as Rare Disease Day in Sioux Falls. And I know we have some folks here with the Congenital Heart Defect Awareness Week. Would you mind coming forward? Do you want to bring everybody up? Yeah, oh, absolutely. You come on up. You dressed so nice, so you had to. Would you mind introducing everybody to the people of Sioux Falls?
Sure. My name is Polly Ramus. I'm one of the group coordinators for Mended Little Hearts of the Sioux Empire. My other coordinator here is Sherry Long. These are families in the Sioux Empire right now that are dealing with children who have had congenital heart defects. We have 3 of them here. We have Ethan Ramus, who was born with transposition of the great arteries and had surgery in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Yay! We have Dylan Ranke, who was born with a heart defect and had surgery in Minneapolis. And then we have Phoebe Vargas, who has hypoplastic left heart syndrome, and she has had 3 surgeries. All of them were in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And then we also have little Miss Jersey Meeks, who was born with, refresh my memory. Okay, multiple heart conditions, and has had how many surgeries? Has had 3 surgeries, and we are just a very small population of those here in the Sioux Empire who have had who have children with heart defects.
Whereas congenital heart defects are the most frequently occurring birth defect and the leading cause of birth defect-related deaths worldwide. Whereas over 1 million families across America are facing the challenges and hardships of raising children with congenital heart defects. Whereas every year 40,000 babies are born in the United States with congenital heart defects. Whereas some congenital heart defects are not diagnosed until months or years after birth. Whereas undiagnosed congenital heart conditions cause many cases of sudden cardiac death in young athletes. Whereas, despite these statistics, newborns and young athletes are not routinely screened for congenital heart defects. Whereas, a disproportionately small amount of funding is available for congenital heart defect research and support. Whereas, Congenital Heart Defect Awareness Week provides an opportunity for families whose lives have been affected to celebrate life and to remember loved ones lost, to honor dedicated health professionals, and to meet others and know that they are not alone. Whereas, the establishment of Congenital Heart Defect Awareness Week will also provide the opportunity to share experiences and information with the public and the media in order to raise public awareness about congenital heart defects. Now, therefore, I, Mike Huther, Mayor of the City of Sioux Falls, do hereby proclaim February 7th through the 14th, 2012 as Congenital Heart Defect Awareness Week in Sioux Falls, and encourages all citizens to increase awareness, education, and services for congenital heart defects, which each year affect thousands of babies in South Dakota. Thank you. Well, thank you all for being here tonight. We'll now move on to tonight's consent agenda. Council, any questions, comments, or motions on tonight's consent agenda?
Move to approve, Anderson.
Second, Karski.
Councilor Anderson Jr. has made a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda. It was seconded by Councilor Karski. Any comments? A roll call vote, please.
Council members Erpenbach?
Yes.
Jamison?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Brown?
Yes.
Thank you. That is passed 7-0. We'll now move on to tonight's regular agenda. Council, any comments on tonight's regular agenda?
Move to approve, Brown.
Second, Erpenbach.
Councilor Brown's made a motion to approve tonight's agenda, seconded by Councilor Erpenbach. Any discussion at all? Very good. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Erpenbach?
Yes.
Jamison?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Brown?
Yes.
Thank you. That is also passed 7-0. Again, welcome to tonight's meeting. It's certainly great to have everybody here tonight. If there's anybody in the audience who'd like to speak to the council, please just come forward. We'd ask you to keep your comments to 5 minutes or less. And also just introduce yourself to the people of Sioux Falls with just your name. Welcome.
Scott Arisman, Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Well, here we go again. We're talking about moving public input to the end of the meetings. I guess I'm a person that believes if something's not broke, we shouldn't fix it. I remember during Munson's administration, we could come up here and speak for 5 minutes or more, and we actually had interaction with the council and the mayor. We don't have that anymore. That's a disappointment to me. I believe that citizens should be able to address their councilors and get answers. But I don't think we should move public input. One of the reasons given is because there's city directors and city employees here to do business, and their time is valuable. Well, last I checked, we pay their wages. And we come here on our own time. Some of them make 6 figures a year. I think they can sit and wait for the public to come up here and talk for a few minutes. I'm seeing us slowly chip away at First Amendment rights in the city, and it really scares me a lot. And when I heard that they were considering moving public input, I just shook my head. It's another chip away, chip away, chip away. We still don't, as far as I can tell, I can't see any city contracts on the city website. We were told that once the councilors started approving the contracts, we could go on there and look at them. Not sure why that hasn't happened yet either. All kind of seemed to kind of roll downhill right after Deborah Owen left. She worked very hard. You know, we could go into that, but I'm not going to. But she worked very hard for several years to bring more transparency to this city. And now that she's gone, we're starting to go in the opposite direction. It's a shame. And I hope that we don't move public input. I even suggest that you don't even discuss it. Leave it as it is, and don't even put it in a work session. It doesn't even belong on the agenda. Leave it as is. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. Is there anybody else who want to speak to the council tonight? Welcome.
Tim Stanga. I guess talking to a lot of people in this town, the public input is a big subject. Just like the event center, just like getting the mayor getting control. The people are not happy with the way the city is going, and the people are going to have a say to it. It's time that we realize public input is important. It's where the councilors and the mayor see how people think and what they think about the town and what's going on. I just think that changing public input to the end of a meeting is going to limit what people are going to come in. It's going to knock your elderly people out because they're not going to stay at a meeting. And I guess what I look at is if we want a bunch of sheep, then we're going to end up with sheep. But if we want to listen to the public, then we're going to leave it alone. If it doesn't mean anything to you guys, it does to people outside these doors, because there's a lot of people that watch Channel 16. But I also look at, there are some city officials that do come up here and speak. And as soon as they're down at the podium, they walk right out that door. They do not sit at this meeting until the last minute, which we pay their wages. You know, it just bothers me that we're going to come after the public and shut the public up to be able to say what they want to say and do what they want to do for 5 minutes. And I'm hoping, again, just like this gentleman said, let's just leave it alone. Nothing is broken. And let's go on with business, because I think this town has a lot more things to worry about than 5 minutes of public input.
Mr. Tinka, thank you very much. Is there anybody else who wanted to speak to the council? Sir, just come forward, please.
Hi, good evening. My name is Rodney Fitz, and I'm a resident and a business owner here in Sioux Falls. And I just wanted to visit a little bit with the council about the city overextending some of its powers or its authority with businesses like myself. And I'm a landlord, by the way. You know, just to tell you a little bit about myself, I mean, I'm a son of a farmer who raised 6 kids on 160 acres. And I left home when I was 17 and never received any financial help from my parents until 10 years later when I borrowed $1,000 to go to college and paid that back 2 weeks later with interest. And yet today here in Sioux Falls, because of the Sioux Falls has a lot of opportunities, and I have basically through sweat equity built a business that has 250 apartment units here in Sioux Falls. And I've worked very hard at that. And there's other landlords just like me that are working just as hard, that are working to try to build something, a life for themselves, and Sioux Falls has been a great place to do that. But we have things that are going on that I think are just a little bit going too far, that we have to fight. Maybe it's just a little thing right now, but I think it can be a big thing. And let me ask you as city council members, how would you like it if you had city officials walking around your backyard, looking in your windows, and oh, by the way, if there's an open door, just walk into your private property without your knowledge, without your invitation, and yet going in there and looking under the influence of code enforcement. And then all of a sudden you get a letter saying something was wrong. I think no matter what the reason, I had that happen on my place, on my properties, where clearly things could not be seen from the street. They entered into my private property. We've had other people, friends of mine, that they've entered into their building, sent them letters, and it was, in fact, the code enforcement was the wrong issue. They were wrong for even there, but either way, no matter what it was, they really had no right to be there. I think that's overstepping the bounds or the authority of what the city enforcement should be about. I think we're business people. If they want to inspect our properties, call us, make an appointment, let us know. We're glad to show it to them. I have nothing to hide. But I don't think it's appropriate for them to come into my property, just like coming into my house or your house, without your information or your private property, without that knowledge. And so I ask you to stop that behavior or stop that activity as fast as possible. And that's fair. Then the other second issue I have that is just something that I'm hearing about, and maybe I'm wrong here, but I think I'm hearing that there's a little bit of a movement amongst even some of the city council members to somewhat make landlords responsible for tenants' criminal activity. And I think that's wrong, and it's interesting for a couple of reasons. One, it was the city, there's a bill right out in front of the state right now, House Bill 1058, that is increasing the cost of criminal background checks from $15 to $25 when surrounding states either charge nothing or $1. for that same information. But it's a tool landlords can use to make better decisions as to who to rent to. Yet, we hear the city wants to make us more accountable, yet when we went to the city, we understand that Chief Bartell and Mayor Huther said that they would not send anybody out to testify against that bill. Now, we find that interesting. If you want to hold us more accountable, help us build those tools. Help us get those tools so that we can make better decisions. You know, I think it's really, you have to think about a landlord and his business. A landlord cannot take a piece of property and say, you know what, I don't like the clientele I'm renting to over here, so let's just pick up this piece of property and move it over here where we have a better clientele. They can't do that. They have a property that's in this area, so they have to adjust and market to the clientele that they have in that area. Then, if someone is not abiding by their rules, a landlord has really one choice. He can say, abide by the rules or we'll evict you. Now, each time you evict a tenant, it costs about $1,000, not counting lost rents or damages that go along with that. So I think it's hard to ask a landlord to enforce criminal behavior when that should be enforced by the city, who has that by law. I think, you know, you have the force of law behind you to help you enforce that and force personal responsibility. I think that's where it really starts. But I don't think you can go out to a landlord and say, hey, you're responsible for this activity, especially when you don't help them give the tools that they really need to help with that and know who they're renting to. So I just ask that the city get behind this and help us. Help us make better decisions. Help us give those tools. You know, there's no reason the city couldn't, you know, set up crime-free zones, actually, by the way. And why not? You know, they say that fines are double in certain areas. Maybe in certain areas you make fines double if they commit crimes in that area. I mean, there's a lot of different things you could be doing. But I think those are the enforcement issues, but not on the police department, not necessarily on the landlord. I think we're here to support those efforts, not to enforce those efforts. So I just ask for your help.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Folks, is there anybody else who wanted to speak to the council? Well, very good. Thank you very much for being here tonight. I'm sure the council appreciates your comments. We'll now move on to item number 65.
Item number 65 is 2012 renewal of the package liquor license for Gilbertson Enterprises Incorporated, MX Liquors, to be operated at 709 South Cliff Avenue with an underage sales conviction in 2011. Item 66 is a special one-day liquor license for St. Teresa's Catholic Church to be held at the St. Teresa Catholic Church Gathering Place, 901 North Tahoe Trail, for a parish social activity, Fiesta, on February 11th, 2012. Item 67 is a special one-day license request for Prairie Pasta Incorporated, Johnny Carino's, to be operated at the Old Courthouse Museum, 200 West 6th Street, for wedding receptions on March 3rd and April 28th. Item 68 is a special one-day liquor license for Philanthropy Promotions Incorporated, J&L Harley Davidson, for Hot Harley Nights on July 14th, 2012, at Falls Park West, park area north of the Sioux Falls Park and Recreation Office leading to Falls Park along Phillips Avenue, with the north boundary of Falls Park Drive, south boundary to 8th Street, east boundary is to the chain link fence on the east side of the park. The street will be closed on 6th Street from Dakota to Weber Avenues, and the west boundary of Dakota Avenue.
Thank you. Lori, welcome.
Thank you. Lori Hogstead with the City Attorney's Office, representing items 65 to 68. Item 65 is our very last renewal for 2012. This applicant had originally stated he was not going to renew his packaged liquor license, and then did change his mind and filed the paperwork prior to the end of the year, which gave him the power to continue on with his 2012 renewal. He also had an underage sale in 2011. That was back in February of 2011. The applicant is here tonight to answer questions you may have. His name is Keith Gilbertson, and then we also have Lieutenant Mikesell here from the Police Department, who could answer questions regarding the sting or the sting process. If you'd like, I can certainly have Mr. Gilbertson come forward.
Yeah, Laura,
okay.
I think that'd be what the council would like. Thank you. Mr. Gilbertson, welcome.
Pardon me?
Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
It's good to have you here. In the past, we've always had business owners who've sold to underage patrons, if you could just relay to the council some of the things that you've done to deter that in the future, if you wouldn't mind.
Well, first of all, the first thing that probably everybody does that has a liquor license here in Sioux Falls is send their employees to the alcohol management training program that trains your employees for you, basically, in regard to accepting or rejecting legal or illegal licenses, identifications, that sort of thing, and as well as ongoing constant reminders from management to watch what they're doing and be aware of people that may be underage, and just keep checking with your employees to see that they're on the ball and paying attention.
Mr. Gilbertson, thank you. Council, any questions of Mr. Gilbertson tonight? Yes, Councilor Jameson.
Keith, what the employee who sold to the underage officer or underage agent, what happened to them?
What happened to them?
Yeah.
I kept them in employment. They had to pay a $200 fine, I believe it was.
Lori, is it 500 or is it 250?
It was 500. It was 500 for me. I had since she had alcohol training. Then my fine from the Department of Revenue was $500, and hers for making the sale was $200. And it was a complete aberration for her. She's worked in selling liquor at the convenience store right across the street from me for a number of years, and she'd only been working for me for less than a year, I think, yeah. And but she had been employed for several years at other stores in that capacity, selling alcoholic beverages. And she had never had a previous conviction, and she hasn't had since. She has passed at least 2 sting operations that I know of since that. Her mother had just passed away about a week before this, and the funeral had only been about 3 or 4 days before the sting operation, and I knew that her mind wasn't totally on what she was doing, even though I cautioned her to, Kathy, I know how you are, but just if you don't feel like working, just say so, and we'll get somebody else to take your place. And she said, no, that's okay, I'll work, I'm okay, a couple days after the funeral. And but I still think that had a lot to do with it, because she was not herself.
Councilor Jimson?
This topic has become kind of a hot issue for the council lately, and we're working on things in Pier to help give us some better tools to affect change in the community. But a couple questions. Do you have any electronic devices that would help prevent this from happening, like a scanner that would scan an ID and then make the system request another input to bypass that? Or do you have any electronic devices to help you in this process?
I do not. I find them to be quite expensive for my small operation.
Okay, one of the things I'd just share, if I could, real quick. The procedure that was done before was that sales clerk who had sold that product in the past would be arrested and removed from the store. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes, if that's the only employee working, would cause that business to be shut down. Or, out of courtesy, the city could allow and wait for you or the owner or manager to come back and cover for that person. Yeah. How would you feel if that was reinstated? This is a test.
I really don't see the need for that. It just made the whole thing more inconvenient, and it certainly isn't the intent of the employees to make that sale. I think that the $200 fine for the employee, the average employee that's working as a clerk in a liquor store or a convenience store or a grocery store or wherever as a checker or a clerk, that $200 is a pretty significant fine to any individual such as that, and I think that there's probably any clerk or employee that's selling liquor that would intentionally make that error and subject themselves to a $200 fine. I think the $200 fine is pretty prohibitive incentive to closely check IDs and to be cautious in selling liquor to minors. The thing about arresting the clerk right on the spot and taking them to jail and making an employer come down, that makes for good propaganda and makes for a lot of awareness, but speaking from the standpoint of a business owner myself, we really don't need that. When we get the letter from the Department of Revenue saying that even though our employee has been trained in the alcohol management training program, I'm still going to have to pay a $500 fine. That's pretty good motivation for trying to keep your employees on the ball in regard to checking on liquor or legal IDs.
I can appreciate your comments, and this is a fluid discussion, but as the owner of that license and that property that you have, it's a great privilege for you, but it also comes with great responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
And the city has a responsibility to protect those citizens in our community with safeguards, and that's one of them. And I know you might find this a large inconvenience to your operation and your business, but due to some things that have happened, that may be our only recourse, is to fall back on a procedure like that was done in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Be aware of that. And,
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And you know, certainly this gal that was working had tremendous pressures on her, and I think a lot of all the other cases that have occurred in the past, there's been some circumstances. But if we find somebody who has a total disregard for the process because they either want to sell it to kids or they just want to be a good buddy or friend, or if it's the owner who's doing it because it just makes money for them to sell, we are going to take excessive steps to correct the problem. But I know I'm preaching a little bit here because I'm trying to explain this process to you
Mm-hmm.
and to the rest of the council and ferret out some of these methods for ourselves. So good luck.
Councilor Anderson, Jr.
This might be a question for Lori. Say you had a conviction in 2011. Is there any other convictions? Usually when we get a list of these, we see maybe like a 5-year.
Mm-hmm. That is the only one in the 5-year time period. Otherwise, I would have listed those out for 5 years. You're right, though. Generally, on the exhibit that I furnish, it does show 5 years. That's correct. But this would be the only one in the past 5 years. I think there was one more a number of years before that, wasn't there, Keith?
Yeah.
So
I can't remember. It was quite a while
just
ago.
one within the past 5 years.
Thank you.
Councilor Karski.
There's a couple of different types of incentives that are out there, typically a carrot and a stick. And it seems like the stick is pretty big that is wielded when you're hit with a $500 fine by the state and like you said, your employee getting hit with a $200 fine. How many times a year are you a part of the liquor sting, minor sales?
How many times do I get to experience a liquor sting?
Yes, sir.
I would say probably just off the top of my head 4 times a year.
4 times a year.
Yeah.
Have you thought about incentives to your employees that when they pass the liquor sting?
Oh, yeah. $50 incentive to pass the liquor sting.
You have that?
Yeah.
Good. I commend you. Thank you.
Council, any further questions of this gentleman? Well, very good. Thank you very much for being here tonight. We appreciate it.
You bet. Thank you.
Council, any motions on the items that Lori has discussed tonight?
Move to approve Anderson.
Second, Aguilar.
Councilor Anderson Jr. has made a motion to approve these items 65 through 68. It was seconded by Councilor Aguilar. If there is no further discussion, if we could have a roll call vote, please.
Councilmembers Erpenbach?
Yes.
Jamison?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Brown?
Yes.
Thank you. That is passed 7-0. Item 69.
Item 69 is a is a second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, a major amendment, petition number 2011-12-1 to Chapter 15.45.070, Plan Development Districts at 5124 South Solberg Avenue, amending the Interstate Crossings Plan Development District sub-area regulations. The Planning Commission recommends approval.
Good evening, Councilor, Mayor. Mike Cooper, representing Planning and Building Services. This is a petition being presented to you tonight by Dennis Bresky, representing the Interstate Crossing Development Corporation. This is property that's located east of Interstate 29, north of Interstate 229, and south of West 57th Street. It encompasses about 39 acres of undeveloped land. Back in 1998, this was part of a zoning development that was originally proposed to be more of a traditional office or business park. And with the changes of growth, the market in this area, the developers are now asking for the zoning to be amended by adding additional uses including retail trade, hotels, and restaurants, because they feel that there is a potential market in this area of the city for these more commercial type uses. We have looked at this and we have supported this request, as well as on your agenda, the Planning Commission is recommending approval of this amendment to the plan development zoning.
Ms. Cooper, thank you. This is a second reading, folks, so is there anyone in the audience who wanted to speak to this item? Well, very good, very good. Council, your opportunity.
Move for approval, Brown.
Second, Urbanbach.
Councilor Brown's made a motion to approve, seconded by Councilor Urbanbach. Is there any discussion? Very good. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Erpenbach?
Yes.
Jamison?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yeah.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Brown?
Yes.
Thank you. This passed 7-0. Item 70.
Item 70 is a second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending Appendix B, the zoning ordinance of the revised ordinances of the city by amending Board of Adjustment public notice. The Planning Commission recommends approval.
Ms. Cooper.
This is a amendment that's being initiated by city staff as well as the Zoning Board of Adjustment membership. The Board of Adjustment is a voluntary board. Those members are appointed by the mayor and city council, and they are charged with developing procedures and policies for granting variances to the zoning ordinance, as well as considering appeals, administrative appeals. As part of our ongoing discussion that we've had with the council going back a couple of years ago now, of providing more public notice, more public awareness of various types of public hearings, this is a proposal to change the public notification process for the Board of Adjustment. And this would involve increasing the time of posting signs on the property from 5 to 10 days, so essentially doubling the time frame for the notification on the property, as well as adding a new provision that city staff would send out a notice, a written notice, 10 days prior to the meeting of the abutting property owners to let them know of upcoming agenda items. We would also continue to publish those notices in the newspaper as we have done in the past. Again, we believe that this is a good way to proceed forward. We made changes last year to the Planning Commission notification. I think that's worked out really well. And I think this would also improve our public awareness of those items that are being considered by the Zoning Board of Adjustment.
Thank you, Mike. Anyone in the audience want to speak to this particular item? Sure, welcome. If you'll just state your name, please, for the people of Sioux Falls.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. My name is Greg Neitzert. It is my contention that notification requirements for the Zoning Board of Adjustment hearings are inadequate. Currently, the code only requires a posting of signs on the applicant's property for 5 days prior to the hearing. Sign-only notification is not sufficient because of adverse weather conditions, properties that are not owner-occupied, and the tendency of the public to ignore signs. A mailed notification to adjacent property owners is a simple measure to ensure the city has made a good faith effort to notify those that may be affected by the granting of a variance. The notification period of 5 days is also inadequate. Most people have no idea what a variance is and have never been before the board. Speaking personally, as a neighbor who has opposed a variance, 5 days is a very short period of time to educate yourself and to prepare for the hearing if you choose to oppose the application. In my research of zoning codes of other cities in the region, I found that written notification and longer notification periods are the rule, not the exception. Sioux City, Omaha, Rapid City, Des Moines, Lincoln, Mankato, St. Cloud, Minneapolis, St. Paul, and Duluth all have required mailed notification with longer notice periods for variances. This change will add some administrative cost and burden to the zoning department to comply. Fortunately, we can project this impact with real-world experience. In April of 2011, this City Council unanimously approved an ordinance that enhanced notification procedures for rezonings and conditional uses. That change has not significantly impacted the cost of compliance for the zoning department. It has been pointed out that the Board of Adjustment is a quasi-judicial body with different considerations than the Planning Commission. This is true. The Board of Adjustment has several criteria it must consider when determining whether it should grant a variance. It would be inappropriate, in fact, it would be illegal for the board to approve or deny a variance based solely on a neighbor's support or objection. However, one of the factors the board must consider is impacts on neighboring properties. Section 1563.090 of the zoning ordinance describes the scope and factors the board must consider. It states in part, the board shall first determine that the proposed change will not impair an adequate supply of light and air to adjacent properties or impair established property values within the surrounding area. Surely, no one is better equipped than the adjacent landowner to present facts to the board related to impacts on their property. Even if a neighbor's testimony does not affect the decision of the board, I would submit notification still has value because it enhances the transparency and accountability of the board and gives neighbors a fair chance to have their say. Finally, I would point out that if a variance is granted by the board, a neighbor's only recourse is to file with the circuit court within 30 days alleging an illegal decision. The City Council has no power to review these decisions. This council and mayor know better than anyone what can happen when neighbors feel like they weren't notified when it counted. Because a variance could significantly impact neighbors and is a grant of a special privilege to a landowner, as a matter of fairness, transparency, and protecting all of the citizens of the city, this change is necessary. Thank you.
Craig, thank you. Is there anyone else who wanted to speak to this item? Well, very good. Council, any questions, any comments? Yes, Councilor?
This came before the Land Use Committee as part of the redoing, if we will, of the ordinances on this, and we supported it very heavily and very firmly, and I would urge the council to do the same.
Councilor Rolfing, thank you. Yes, Councilor Anderson, Jr.
I have a question for the young man that came up
Mr.
and testified.
Craig, would you mind coming forward, please?
Craig. Greg?
Yes, Greg, thank you.
You stated that you did a little research and looked at other cities. We're looking at extending this to 10 days from 5. Do you feel that that's enough time to give notification, or should it be a little longer? Or
I think it's reasonable. Looking at, I actually have a chart of the time periods that cities require, the fees that they charge that I had presented to the Land Use Committee, and 10 days was pretty typical. And that's a reasonable amount of time. 5 days was just quite a crunch from the day that the signs went up to research all of this, figure out what my legal options were, and to get my case ready. 10 days is pretty reasonable, and that falls in line with other things like the conditional uses, I believe, and these other things, and the rezonings. So,
okay. I just want to thank you for your interest in this and coming up in front of both the land use and the council on this, because a lot of people don't do all the research that you did. So thank you for doing that, and we appreciate that.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Council, would anybody like to make a motion on this item?
Move to approve, Karski.
Second, Rolfing.
Councilor Karski has made a motion to approve item number 70, seconded by Councilor Rolfing. Any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Councilmembers Erpenbach? Yes. Jamison?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
Karski? Rolfing?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Brown?
Yes.
Thank you. That is passed 7-0. Item 71.
Item 71 is a second reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, rezoning property at the east side of Spring Avenue between 13th Street and 14th Street from the RA2 Residential District to the Gigglebees Redevelopment Plan Development District, petition number 2011-12-6, and amending the official zoning map of the City of Sioux Falls. Planning Commission recommends approval.
This is a petition to modify the zoning in order to allow multifamily development on a portion of the area commonly known as the Gigglebees Block. I would remind the council that the property that's being considered tonight is currently zoned RA2 residential, which is our highest density of multifamily residential. The purpose of the zoning change to the plan development is to allow more flexibility in terms of the placement of the building on the site, and the height would be amended by a 5 feet allowance from what's currently in the zoning ordinance. So this would be a 4-story apartment building with a total of 31 units. The breakdown, at least preliminarily, is shown as 22 1- and 2-bedroom units and 9 3-bedroom units. There was a question at first reading about the parking plan, and in working with the petitioner, which I should have mentioned earlier is Lloyd Companies, is the proposed developer of this multifamily development. The parking plan, as we've discussed, would be showing 43 parking spaces on site. They would also be purchasing 5 monthly transit passes because we are encouraging residents of this area to use the bus system. Our bus route goes right by this property, so it's going to be very convenient. So between the bus passes and the on-site parking, they will meet the parking requirements. There will not be a variance or reduction needed. And then we also anticipate working with the remainder of this property with First Midwest Bank. They are now coming in with a rezoning for the balance of the property that will also provide potential opportunities for some shared parking with the remainder of the development on this site. So again, we believe that with the type of tenants, the size of the units, that the parking requirements will be adequate. And in addition to that, if the council does approve this zoning change tonight, there will still be one more public hearing that will be presented to the Planning Commission for what we call the final development plan. And that's really the final review of the building, the site, all the other requirements that are in the zoning ordinance. So this has gone through a lot of scrutiny. In fact, since first reading, there were additional presentations made to various groups, including the Pettigrew Heights Neighborhood Group. January 22nd and January 25th, there were additional presentations made. So again, I believe there's been a lot of public review, a public notification about this. We do have representatives of the applicant here tonight if you have any questions for them. But the recommendation tonight is to allow this rezoning to move forward.
Thank you, Mike.
And then I do have, excuse me, Mayor, we do have a request that if you decide to approve this, that we need to amend the legal description to include a provision that would say accept the south 12.5 feet of lot 5.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Mike. Is there anyone in the audience who wanted to speak to this item? Please come forward. Welcome.
Good evening. Chris Torkelson, 3130 West 57th Street, Suite 112. I'm here to address any questions, concerns that you may have with respect to the property, and then also
Shireen Ranch. I'm with Sioux Falls Housing Corporation, which is a nonprofit that we're working together with Lloyd Companies. So we just thought we'd come up here if you had any questions that you...
Thank you both for being here. We appreciate it. Council, any questions of Chris or Sheree? Yes, Councilor Urbanbach.
This is something I should have asked earlier so that you would be prepared for it, but it just crossed my mind again. Have we considered this particular project as being a crime-free housing area? And
this project will be part of crime-free housing.
And then for everyone else, can you just explain that in a couple of sentences? What does that mean when we...
Well, you have to meet certain... For one thing, when you screen all the residents, and they can't have any recent criminal activity. If they you rent to them, and then there's criminal activity while they're there, then they're out right away. That's basically there's just limitations. You can't have any registered sex offenders that are on the registered. They are not allowed to live there. They're just more tighter screening of the people that live there, and then if they do commit a crime while they're living there, they're out right away.
Mr. Mayor, if I might, then Shireen, does that mean that there are background checks that have to be done on these folks? And
Yes,
that's part of the process.
We have to run the
of having
background
them?
checks, right?
Okay, good. Thank you.
Yep.
Councilor Anderson, Jr.
Shireen, excuse me, are these income guideline apartments?
Yeah. These apartments, they're not subsidized, but the rents will be set low enough that people at 30, 40, and 50% of the area median income can afford the rent. So we'll have 3 tiers of rents in each bedroom size. But they will be paying the full rent themselves, the people that live there.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Rolfing.
Just curious why you don't need that 12 and a half feet on the amendment?
Mike, would you answer that, please?
Just,
We just discovered that's a correction to the actual current legal description that we missed.
oh, is that
the first
all?
time around. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Councilor Jameson.
Mike or Chris, either one, on the thing I hear about the most, I suppose, is the parking issue, and that the potential for residents and or visitors or employees, or mostly, I suppose, residents, would be forced out onto the street and then use up that street. Can you just cover that parking plan with me one more time, just to make sure we're covered?
Sure. We have a total of 31 units proposed, and those include 22 1- and 2-bedroom units and 9 3-bedroom units. And so based on the zoning requirements, they'll be providing 43 actual parking spaces on site. They're also going to be purchasing 5 monthly transit passes initially to encourage the use of our transit system, because we do have a bus route that goes right through this area. And then we're also going to be working with the bank on the balance of this development to see if there's any future additional opportunities for shared parking.
If I could just trying to do the math real quick, and I'm not trying to kill this deal. I'm just trying to be straight and square with people who are neighbors and understand why you're coming up with these numbers of 43 spaces. In fact, I don't know the total numbers of 22 1- and 2-bedrooms, but if you accounted for 2 people in each of those 2 bedrooms with 2 vehicles, I mean, the worst case scenario is probably somewhere 60 to 70 potential individuals if everybody had their own car, and you've got 43 spots. How do you just kind of have enough knowledge knowing that not everybody's going to have a car, and
Right.
it's not all 3-bedroom places?
Yes, that's based on history of other developments like this. And
Right.
I think as they've looked at the type of tenants that are going to be most likely using these or renting these units, that in some cases they won't have vehicles, and in some cases they'll probably seldom have more than 1 vehicle. But
Okay.
you want to comment on?
Yes, Councilor Anderson, Jr.
Actually,
Oh,
it's,
sorry.
We're off a little, but it's 8 3-bedrooms and the rest are 1 and 2s. And the way the city parking requirements is 1.5 spots for 1 and 2 bedrooms and 2 spots for 3 bedrooms. So we're going to have more spots than we have apartments. And it would be very unusual for any of these families to have 2 vehicles. There might be a few, but not very many. They have 1, and we've got definitely 1 spot for everyone to have at least 1, plus there's some extras. I really don't see there's going to be an issue with that.
Shireen, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, Council, thank you. Would anybody like to make a motion on this?
Move to approve, Anderson.
Second, Brown.
Councilor Anderson, Jr. has made a motion to adopt this ordinance, and then Councilor Brown seconded the motion.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Councilor Brown, thank you.
I'll make a motion to amend the main motion by adding, except the south 12.5 feet of Lot 5 after lots 1 through 5 and before Block 2.
Thank you.
Second, Karski.
Thank you, Councilor Brown. And then that was seconded by Councilor Karski, made a motion to amend. Any discussion on that? Very good. If we could have a vote taken on the motion to amend, please.
Councilmembers Erpenbach,
Yes.
Jamison,
Yes.
Karski,
Yes.
Rolfing,
Yes.
Aguilar,
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Brown.
Yes.
The motion to amend passed 7-0. Any discussion? Yes, Councilor Bach?
Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to, because I commented to Mike Cooper a couple weeks ago about that I had heard some concerns about this particular property and the plan for it. And I heard really very limited conversation from citizens. I think that's why I asked the question that I did about the crime-free housing, that's a program that really can make a difference in a community, and I just am really glad we're doing that. The other thing I would say is this looks like a nice-looking building. It's going to improve that neighborhood. I'm just excited to see it happen. I thank the developers, and I'm glad that we're able to vote on this and pass it this evening.
Thank you, Councilor Brown.
This area is really blighted today, and this will be a nice improvement to the area. And I want to thank Lloyd Companies and Shireen for really getting this going.
Very good. Would anybody like to make a motion?
No, we
Or
just
no,
need-
wait, I'm sorry, we'll just take a vote on the main motion as amended. Sorry, thank you.
Councilmembers Erpenbach,
Yes.
Jamison,
Yes.
Karski,
Yes.
Rolfing,
Yes.
Aguilar,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Brown.
Yes.
Thank you very much. That's passed 7-0. Item 72.
Item 72 is an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the revised ordinances of the city by revising Chapter 14 of the Campaign Finance Ordinance for municipal elections.
Thank you. Sue Roust, interim city clerk. This amendment would change the ordinance, the city's election campaign finance ordinance, to bring them in conformance with a U.S. Supreme Court decision that took place in early 2010 relating to the ability of independent groups to make expenditures for communications relating to elections. And the more significant one probably is a change in state law in 2011 that allows corporations to give to PACs. At the first reading of this item on January 17th, I gave you a PowerPoint presentation listing all the changes and how they would affect our upcoming election. If you approve this tonight, it would be effective March 1st, which of course is kind of right in the middle of this election season. But as I told you last time, I truly believe that very few of these changes would have any impact on this election. We did start having candidates take out petitions a week ago, and we have given each of them a list of the potential changes so they would be fully aware of them. The most significant ones, and one of the reasons that I really believe this needs to be passed, is that currently state law allows corporations to donate to PACs, but our city ordinance does not allow it, and that is going to cause some problems. We have talked to one PAC that routinely is involved in local elections and supports local candidates, and they have told me, yes, they began taking corporate contributions last year when the state law changed, and so as of this moment, they cannot participate in our election process anymore. They understand that this is on your agenda tonight, and that if it passes, then as of March 1st, they would again be able to participate. The other change is one where we are bringing you an amendment tonight. When I presented this to you the first time, we had a recommendation that a change be made in investigation of violations of campaign finance ordinance. That for any of those alleged violations involving a current elected official, the board to do the investigating be the Board of Ethics rather than the city attorney as it is now. The rationale being that it puts the city attorney in a difficult position when that person is really the counsel for the city and for the elected officials. There was some discussion, has been ongoing, that perhaps all violations of election campaign finance should be investigated by the Board of Ethics, because you have the potential, for instance, of a mayoral candidate who an allegation is made against. Well, that may not be the current boss of the city attorney, but has the potential to be a future boss. And if the city attorney ruled against that person, they might be accused of defending their current boss and being partisan isn't the right word, but being unfair. And last week, when the Charter Revision Commission met, they also were looking at this same concept related to violations of the election procedures that are in charter. And their final recommendation, and an item that is going on the ballot in April, is to put the Board of Ethics overseeing any violations of the elections provisions of the charter for both current elected officials and any candidates for city office. And so we have before you tonight an amendment that would revise section 14-78, and it's short, so I'll just read it. Rather than the original proposal, which was to turn alleged violations of elected officials over to the Board of Ethics, this would turn over all of them. And it reads, the Sioux Falls Board of Ethics shall hear any complaints of possible violations of the provisions of this chapter relating to a city elected office or a ballot question, and may take such action as provided by the ethics ordinances of this code. So my request would be that you consider also adopting this amendment so we can be consistent that all of these types of investigations are turned over to the Board of Ethics, getting the city attorney out of the middle of it. And I would also request your approval of the entire ordinance.
Thank you very much. Folks, this is a second reading. So is there anybody who wanted to speak to this item? Very good. Council?
Move to approve, Brown.
Second, Aguilar.
Councilor Brown's made a motion to adopt this ordinance. It was seconded by Councilor Aguilar. Any further comments?
Mr. Mayor, I'd move to amend the main motion using the wording as read by the interim city clerk.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there a second on that?
Second, Anderson.
Councilor Bucks made the motion to amend the main motion. It was seconded by Councilor Anderson Jr. Any discussion on that? Yes, Councilor Jameson.
Thank you. This is a little odd, but as a sitting candidate, is it okay and is it appropriate for me to be voting on these as a candidate? I just want to be crystal clear so I don't have to explain it to somebody else later.
I'm going to defer that to our city attorney, David Pfeiffer.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Councilor Jameson. The conflict of interest rules require you to recuse yourself if you are gaining some special advantage that some other citizen, or in this case, some other candidate, would not otherwise possess. But since tonight you would be adopting rules that would apply universally to all candidates, be it an incumbent or a challenger, you in no way are gaining any special advantage or in a unique position. So my opinion would be you don't have to recuse yourself tonight from this vote.
Councilor Jameson?
I always leave it to an attorney to say my opinion. I just needed to hear that out loud, frankly, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
No, good job. Thank you. Well, we do have a motion to amend the main motion. If there is no further discussion, a roll call vote, please.
Councilmembers Erpenbach?
Yes.
Jameson?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Brown?
Yes.
That has passed 7-0. Any further discussion? Very good. If we could have a vote taken on the main motion as amended.
Councilmembers Erpenbach?
Yes.
Jameson?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Brown?
Yes.
Thank you. That has passed 7-0. Item 73.
Item 73 is a first reading. An ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement for the sale of the River Ramp parking structure to River Greenway Hospitality, LLC.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Brent O'Neill, representing the Community Development Department tonight. This item is the next step in the River Greenway project, as well as the Hilton Garden Inn, a hotel that we hope to see up in that area soon. We'll be in front of the council a few times with a few different presentations as this project moves forward. Most recently, we were here in January when the council took the action approving tax increment district number 14 to help support this project. Tonight's item and the action that will be requested of the council next week is specific to the river ramp and its demolition. The demolition is a planned action of the city, but it's also necessary for the full development of the Greenway project as well as the hotel development that is planned for the East Bank area. This ordinance allows the city to enter into an agreement with River Greenway LLC, who is the developer of the hotel project. As part of their acquisition of the property, they will also be demolishing it. We expect that ramp removal will be complete by the late spring of this year. Real briefly, I just, on a technicality, wanted to point out that we submitted a revised agreement to the ordinance as part of the attachment, address some minor things that we've been discussing back and forth with the development team and our attorneys this week. I can get into those if you'd like, but generally I'd like to just close by saying that we do intend on giving a fuller, more detailed presentation on both this item as well as the project as a whole, but I could answer any questions tonight as you may have them. Thank you.
Thanks, Brent. Folks, this is a first reading, so you don't have the opportunity to address the council today. But council, you do have an opportunity to address Brent. Councilor Jameson.
Brent, in the revised version, I haven't had a chance to read it all, but are the piers addressed specifically? I mean, that's like a huge undertaking to remove the piers. Are we talking about removal of all the concrete from top to bottom?
Yes, we had a fairly complete study done by a consulting group, Locker Consultants. They've come up with a very detailed plan and specifications that need to be followed, so those items are addressed in that plan. That's not specifically aligned in the agreement, but the agreement does require those plans to be followed.
And the property on the west side of the river, once that ramp is removed, the concrete's all removed, the environmental issues that may be impending on that side of the river are left to the city, right?
Yeah, the city will retain ownership of that property.
That part is not a part of it. Okay.
Correct. This agreement is for the structure only. The land will remain with the city per this agreement. We obviously have other things in place for the land on the East Bank side.
Thank you.
Council, or would you like to read some additional items into that record?
Do you want me to read the revised portions of the agreement?
What do you think, Brent?
I can highlight them really quick just from a 40,000-foot level if that's appropriate. We did file it and we did post it to SIRE, so those are out there for the public.
Okay. Does that sound okay? Okay,
Okay,
great.
thank you.
Brent, thank you.
Welcome.
Council, this is a first reading. Would anybody recommend that we give it a second reading?
Move to set the hearing date as set.
Second, Anderson.
Thank you, Councilor Jameson. Councilor Jameson's made a motion to set the hearing and second reading for Monday, February 13th at 7 p.m., and it was seconded by Councilor Anderson, Jr. Is there any discussion? A roll call vote, please.
Councilmembers Erpenbach?
Yes.
Jameson?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Brown?
Yes.
Thank you. That is passed 7-0. Item 74.
Item 74 is an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, providing supplemental appropriations.
Good evening, Amy Richardson, Public Health Finance and Information Officer with the Health Department. The Health Department has been awarded a federal grant to construct a school-based clinic on the west side at Hayward Elementary. The supplemental funding of $500,000 will be to construct this facility and some technology equipment. And then I also have police and...
Chief of Police Barthel, welcome.
Good evening, Doug Barthel, Police Chief. Ours is a request to amend the capital plan for the purchase of another canine dog. It's $8,000, but we have federal drug seizure money that we're going to be using for that purchase, so this would take place without cost to the city.
Thank you. Mr. Cooper?
The transit portion of this request includes sales tax as well as federal funds, and this would be used to add windows at our maintenance shop at our transit facility located at 6th and Weber.
Council, any questions of Chief Barthel or Amy or Mike? Yes, Councilor Anderson, Jr.
Mike, I'm going to what's the thinking on adding windows to a building that hasn't had them for 20-some years?
Because of the usage inside the building, the number of vehicles, the type of work that goes on in there, we've done an analysis, and we're actually looking at the potential for future expansion of that building, but this would be separate from that. But it's been determined that within that shop area that there needs to be more ventilation, more light, and this would also provide probably a reduction in the energy consumption as well. So if it would be helpful, we can get some actual building plans and show you those for second reading if that would help you.
I think that'd be very helpful.
Sure, we'll do that.
Thank you.
Very good. Council, would anybody like to set a date of hearing and second reading for Monday, February 13th at 7 p.m. for item 74?
So move Anderson.
Second, Jameson.
Councilor Anderson Jr. has made that motion, seconded by Councilor Jameson. If there is no further discussion, a roll call vote, please.
Councilmembers Erpenbach?
Yes.
Jameson?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Brown?
Yes.
Thank you. That is passed 7-0. Item 75.
Item 75 is a first reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the Code of Ordinances of said city by rezoning property at the west side of Sioux Falls from the A1 Agricultural District to the RS1 Residential District. The Planning Commission recommends approval.
This is an item that would be considered at a joint meeting with City Council as well as the Minnehaha County Commission. This property is currently located 1/2 mile west of Marion Road on the south side of Maple Street. It consists of 40 acres of land that's owned by the Sioux Falls School District. This land was purchased some time ago for the future development of a middle school as well as an elementary school. And the city has also identified that this is a future site for another potential fire station. We are currently working on the potential to get this property annexed into the city limits. But we thought that rather than waiting until that happens, that we would initiate the rezoning process first. And once the property is annexed, the zoning will continue on after it's been brought into the Sioux Falls city limits. So this would change the zoning as noticed in the agenda from agricultural to RS1, which is the residential zoning district, most appropriate, that would allow both of the school sites as well as a fire station to be developed on this property. This is within our future growth area. We can provide utility services to this, and we've been working with surrounding landowners on plans for future street improvements. But again, the annexation is still a work in progress, and we're hoping that we can bring that to the council at a later date. The Sioux Falls School District would like to begin construction of the middle school yet this year, so that's kind of their time frame that we're working on.
Very good. Councilor Brown.
That's quick, Mike. I didn't realize it was going to happen that fast. I do have a question. I don't recall us before tucking in a fire station that close to schools. Any concerns about it being that close in terms of traffic or noise?
No, I think we've looked at ways of trying to cluster fire stations. We have them next to parks, and the way that we would actually develop the plan is so that there would be a good buffer, so that there would not be any interference with the school traffic or the people using the open space around there.
Thank you.
Council, thank you. Would anybody like to make a motion to set a date of hearing and second reading for Tuesday, February 21st at 5:30 at the Joint City Council Minnehaha County Commission meeting for this item?
So moved. Karski.
Second, Rolfing.
Councilor Karski's made that motion, seconded by Councilor Rolfing. If there is no further discussion, a roll call vote, please.
Councilmembers Erpenbach?
Yes.
Jameson?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Brown?
Yes.
Thank you. That is passed 7-0. Item 76.
Item 76 is a first reading, an ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, amending the Code of Ordinances of said city by rezoning property at northwest 1/4 of Section 14, Township 100, Range 49, Lincoln County, from the AG Agricultural District to the RR Rural Residential District. The Planning Commission recommends approval.
This is an item that's proposed to be considered by both the Sioux Falls City Council as well as the Lincoln County Commission. It is within our joint zoning jurisdictional area. This is a particular item that involves the ongoing discussions of the Blood Run Historic Park site. Some time ago, the landowner, which is Buzz Nelson, was allowed to transfer what we call building eligibilities onto this site, and that would be for future single-family residential development. As part of the negotiations with Mr. Nelson on acquiring another portion of his land for expansion of the Blood Run Historic Park site, it was his desire to essentially confirm that this development shown could take place in the future by actually zoning it to rural residential, which is what we typically would do within the county area. So in essence, we're not really adding a new area of residential, but we're just confirming that this transfer of building eligibilities can in fact be developed in the future as a rural residential development. This is part of the Indian Hills Addition subdivision, and it is adjacent, as I said, directly to the east and south is where the Blood Run site is being considered for expansion. So this particular property is about 27 acres of land, and the easiest way to describe the location would be if you go on East 69th Street, approximately 2 miles east of Highway 11. That's where this property is located. East 69th Street, approximately 2 miles east of Highway 11. Both the city and the county planning commissions have met on this, and they have both concurred unanimously that this zoning should be approved. We did not have any neighborhood concerns or public input, and we don't expect that there would be at the joint meeting with the council and the commissioners. We would also ask that as part of your consideration to set the date of hearing and second reading, that be amended to March 26th rather than February 22nd, that would be amended to March 26th of 2012. Thank you.
Very good. Councilor Ermenbach.
Just a couple of questions for the map challenged among us. Where are the city limits on one of these maps? Okay. And I assume those ball fields there, that's Harmonon Park, to give us kind of a...
Yes.
Right, okay.
Yep.
And then my other question is, where is Blood Run in comparison to all of this? Just to give us that perspective. It is down there, okay. Thank you very much.
I have an aerial photo that we could show now, or we could wait till second reading.
Do you mind? That'd be great.
For those in the public that are not familiar with the Blood Run discussion that we've been having, this has been a long process of working with game fish and parks on the South Dakota side, as well as people in Iowa, to acquire property that could be developed into a major destination. And right now, on the South Dakota side, it's being proposed to be acquired for a future state park area. So we have to wait till the machine warms up, apparently. But the property that's being considered for the zoning change is directly to the west of the land that's being considered for expansion of the park.
Can you point that out to us, where that land property is? Oh. We could see it. Yeah, we could see it.
Ah, I didn't know that.
Just
Okay.
to hear the kid.
Got it.
The state has also been working on a master plan for the proposed park, and I've been involved in that planning process, and that did involve a lot of input from surrounding property owners, including this Indian Hills development area.
Thank you.
Council, you bet. Council, would anybody like to Make a motion to set a hearing and second reading for Monday, March 26th at 7 p.m. at the Joint City Council Lincoln County Commission meeting for this item.
So moved, Erpenbach.
Second, Brown.
Councilor Box made that motion, seconded by Councilor Brown. If there is no further discussion, a roll call vote, please.
Councilmembers Erpenbach?
Yes.
Jamison?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Brown?
Yes.
Thank you. That is passed 7-0. Item 77.
Item 77 is a resolution advising and giving consent to the appointment of members to certain citizen boards.
Would you be kind enough to read those for the people of Sioux Falls?
The member is Reed Christofferson to the Sioux Falls Convention and Visitors Bureau Business Improvement District.
Council, any questions or comments or motions?
Move to approve, Brown.
Second, Anderson.
Councilor Brown's made a motion to approve that, seconded by Councilor Anderson Jr. Councilor Aguilar, did you have a question?
No.
Very good. If there is no further discussion, a roll call vote, please.
Councilmembers Erpenbach?
Yes.
Jamison?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Brown?
Yes.
Thank you. That is passed 7-0. Item 78.
78 is report of the January 30th, 2012 notice of transfers of appropriations within major organizational units.
Do we do anything with that?
It's just a
Just
report
ready to
unless they
move.
have questions. Do you have questions?
Any questions on that, folks? Do they have to approve it? Okay. 79.
79 is an agreement to share expenses of the joint city school district elections.
Thank you. Sue Roust, Interim City Clerk. As you well know, we have a significant amount of cooperation between the City of Sioux Falls, Minnehaha County, and the Sioux Falls School District when it comes to local elections. In fact, there has been an agreement in place between the school district and the City of Sioux Falls since 1987. And believe it or not, after 25 years, it's perhaps time for a little bit of an update. And so the first action I have for you here is an updated agreement to share expenses of joint elections with the Sioux Falls School District and the City of Sioux Falls. This would take effect beginning with our April 10th election. And it's very much the same as what we had had before. Essentially, the school district will be responsible for arranging for all staffing of precincts, absentee workers, election night workers, all workers. They will arrange for the polling places, and they will do all of the worker training. The city will continue to do those items we have traditionally done for joint elections. We are responsible for publishing the legal notices, getting the ballot layout taken care of, ordering the ballots and seeing that they get printed, and packing the supply cases for the workers. There is a section in here that talks about cost sharing, which is very much the same as it has been in the past, and there is one new provision that might raise some eyebrows and that I think we need to note. The school district, after the 2010 election, which turned out to be a very costly election, felt that it was important that if they were going to combine elections, that they have some assurance that it wasn't going to cost them more to have a combined election than a standalone election. And that is what happened in 2010. And so there is a provision written in here that they will pay at most 50% of the total cost or the cost of their last standalone election, whichever is less. I do not believe that this puts the city at any risk. The school district last year paid $24,000 to run their election. So what we're saying is we need to bring this election in under $48,000. And I have no doubt we can do that. The other factor in here is the move toward voting centers and electronic poll books. That, as you know, is currently going through the legislature. Senate Bill 58 has passed the Senate and is waiting hearing in the House. It passed the Senate unanimously, so we expect it to go through the House. If that is the case, we will be able to reduce our election costs very dramatically because we will be going down to 12 voting centers where voters can vote at any location, any of those 12, instead of the 57 precincts that we had last November. So that's the basic thought behind the agreement to share expenses of joint elections. The reason I bring this to you as an item on your agenda rather than through the consent agenda process, as most of your contracts are done, is because more than being an agreement about dollars, it's an agreement about the functioning and management of elections, which of course is the city clerk's responsibility, and you oversee that. And so I thought that it was most appropriate to bring it directly to you. Last August, you passed an updated version of the agreement between the city and Minnehaha County that also came directly to the council to be approved. And so I would request your approval first of the agreement to share elections, or to share expenses of joint elections between the Sioux Falls School District and the city of Sioux Falls.
Very good, thank you. Council, any questions of?
Move approval, Erpenbach.
Second, Aguilar.
Councilor Box made a motion to approve item 79, seconded by Councilor Aguilar. Yes, Councilor Karski.
I guess I did have a question before we jump to this. A concern I had, and I don't have a problem with the sharing of the costs, but when it comes to the voting precincts, did you say this would reduce the number of voting places from 57 to 12?
If the legislation passes that is before the legislature right now, that would allow voting centers where a voter can vote at any location throughout the city rather than just at their home precinct, we would reduce the number of locations to 12 scattered throughout the city rather than the 57. There are places where we have, right now, we have 4 precincts within about 4 blocks of each other. And so we would have them strategically placed throughout the city in all quadrants of the city so that, and with the trade-off, the people who voted in the voting center election last year that the school district ran gave overwhelmingly positive response to that. They didn't see the decreased number of places as a problem. Rather, they saw the increased flexibility to go any place they wanted as a great benefit.
So have we already made that decision then for this April election to go down to 12?
If the legislation passes, that is what we are looking at. Last year, the school district used 10. However, they did not have any in Lincoln County, and that's been identified as definitely a shortcoming that we need to correct. And so this year, we would go to add 2 in Lincoln County, both at 57th and Minnesota and then at Primrose Retirement Center out on Louise.
If I may, I just remember the 2008 election. We consolidated ballot places in that election. And I know from talking to many people that when they went to their normal voting place and it was closed, they didn't want to go to look for the one they were supposed to go to. And I understand where being able to vote anywhere is a definite benefit. But we had like a 14% voter turnout in that election, which was probably a historic low for a city council election. And I'm just concerned that we're going to lose voters if we don't give them a little bit more notice.
You've certainly identified one of the key challenges. For the past, 8 years, I think, the Sioux Falls School District has been looking at ways to save money on elections. The first thing they tried was super precincts, where they just cut down the number of precincts. And you've identified the exact problem with that. They would combine about 5 precincts and have you go to one, and then the next election people would remember that's where I went last time and would go back. When I was county auditor, I felt that there were huge problems with super precincts. I was not a fan of them, and I did everything I could, frankly, to discourage their use because of what happens at the next election. I think the voting center concept is, because it's a very different one, it's one that we have a better chance to communicate to the voters that this is different. For this smaller local election, we can give you the flexibility to go to anywhere you want, basically, of those spots. There is going to have to be some education going back, number one, going back next November when there's a presidential election, which is going to have to be done at the precincts, the individual precincts, because otherwise you just have massive problems of crowd control. But you're right, we do need to get that information out. One of the things we would plan to do, should we go ahead with this, is to send out an explanation, a mailer with the water bills that go out in March that would give a brief explanation of the concept and list all the different polling places and really emphasize that this is a new kind of election, voting center election. So we don't use the word precincts. But you're correct. It's a balance of cost. Last November we had a very good turnout election. It cost us $53,000. Last year the school district had a voting center election. It cost $24,000. The school district has said if they need to pay more than what they have done for a standalone election, they'll go back to a standalone election. They're not holding it over our heads. They're just saying this is their best judgment of how to best use their taxpayers' money. So you're correct. It's definitely a balancing act, and one in which the voter education is critical.
Very good. There is a motion. It's been made. If there is no further discussion, a roll call vote, please.
Council members Erpenbach?
Yes.
Jamison?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Brown?
Yes.
Thank you. That is passed 7-0. Item 80.
Item 80 is an agreement for use of laptops in school facilities.
This, again, is related to the upcoming elections. As I said, we are looking at a concept where a voter could go to vote at any voting center within the city. It's critical to do that a voter not be able to vote more than once. And the way we do that is the entire voter list, the entire voter registration file will be on laptops that will be at each of our voting centers. And those laptops will be connected through a secure internet connection and will be updated every minute so that there's no way that a voter could vote at one place and then get to another place and vote again. This system was tested by the school district in last year's May school board election, and the school district has offered to again take the lead in providing the laptops, having their technicians load the programming and load the voter file on them, bring them to the voting centers that we would have, and take care of it. The problem is that we potentially have a runoff election on May 1st, which of course the school district is not part of. They don't have runoffs. But they have offered to provide the same services for a runoff election should we have it. And that's what this agreement is for. It is for the runoff election or any standalone election we might have. Now, I consider this kind of a one-time thing. This year is the first time that our IT staff has been closely observing what this election is like. I've talked to Sue Kwanbeck-Etten, and she has assigned John Clemmy as the point person from our IT department to follow along, to be in contact with the school district IT people as they prepare for the election, to observe the security provisions, the backup provisions that they have, so that after the spring election, you can get a report back not just from your city clerk staff, but from your IT staff on their observations and their recommendations of whether this is something we should go forward with for future elections. But it is necessary, as I said, in the case that we have a runoff election on May 1st. And just a note for the public who may not be aware of the rules, if no candidate in a council race gets 34% of the vote in a race on April 10th, then there will be a runoff on May 1st. So we could have a citywide runoff if that were the case in the at-large position, or it could be just in one of the districts if it happens to be one of the district races. So that is the reason for this agreement, and once again, I would request your approval.
So thank you. Councilors, any motions at all?
Move approval. Rolfing?
Second Aguilar.
Councilor Rolfing, thank you, and Councilor Aguilar, thank you for saying that. Is there any discussion? Very good. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmembers Erpenbach?
Yes.
Jamison?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Brown?
Yes.
Thank you. That is passed 7-0. Council, any further comments on tonight's meeting?
Move to adjourn.
Thank you, Councilor Kurski.
Second, Erpenbach.
It's been a motion to adjourn, seconded by Councilor Erpenbach. If there is no further discussion, roll call vote, please.
Councilmembers Erpenbach?
Yes.
Jamison?
Yes.
Karski?
Yes.
Rolfing?
Yes.
Aguilar?
Yes.
Anderson?
Yes.
Brown?
Yes.
Thank you. That is passed 7-0. This meeting is adjourned. Make it a great night, Sioux Falls. Take care.